are you today?
Over here. Hey there. Thanks for having us. Are you John? Yeah, right on. Thanks for Yeah, thank you.
Glenn, how are you?
Are you all having
Yes.
Really nice to meet you. Looking forward to listening to you, learning from you, and making sure that we reflect that back in the campaign. That's why I've shown up here today. And I thought maybe the best way to get started would be to have everyone introduce themselves and tell me a little bit about you, what you're excited about, what you're concerned about, what brought you to the table here today, and then we'll just start the conversation. So I hate to put you on the spot, but would you mind?
Excuse me, sir.
Hi, I'm Marcy Beckman.
Excuse
I'm
me, sir.
retired. I worked for Chippewa Valley Schools for over 50 years. And I'm concerned about the country right now. You know, the way there's so much hate. I just want to get the right things with it.
What did you do when you worked for the schools?
I started out as a bus driver and then was coordinator for transportation inside where the buses are.
Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Carrie Lido, and I'm a ninth grade English teacher at Chippewa Valley High School. And I've been there for 14 years. And like Marcy, I'm very concerned about what's going on in our country, especially when it comes to the youth of our country. So I'd like to see, some bigger, brighter things happening for them.
I'm looking forward to hearing from you what some of those ideas are, considering the fact that you are working with the youth of our country every single day. So thank you for being here and teaching your public service for being there for the young people. And that they're most important. So appreciate that.
Stacy Clemens, and I'm ninth grade Chippewa Valley High School.
For me, my number one issue right now is education. My son just graduated high school. He's going to be starting college. He wants to go into law enforcement. The mom and me are a little nervous, but also proud. I'd like to hear your ideas on how.
Great.
College
Wonderful.
affordability.
You got it. Thank you, Stacy.
Beto, my name is Gary Glazier. I'm a business agent for Plumbers Local 98 Detroit. I was born in the inner city. I had an apprenticeship that afforded me a middle-class lifestyle. And that's really what I like to hear about what you do for the working class.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, I'm Diane Leach, and I'm a high school social worker at New Haven Community Schools. What's really neat is I get to work and serve all the children in my high school. And my area of concern is access to mental health and behavioral health care services that students are telling me they want, and not just in my high school, but in other settings, and nationally. I'm hearing this from a number of students. And how can adolescents access the services they need to become healthy and strong citizens?
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Looking forward to talking about that and listening to you on that.
I'm Kurt Schroeder. I'm a retired union electrician. I'm mostly concerned right now about getting the current president out of office, honestly. But I think the strength of our country is the middle class, so very concerned about that. Keeping our unions healthy, I think that's important. And healthcare and prescription drug prices, and all of that is top shelf also.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don Macios. I'm a retired union electrician also. And some of my concerns are affordable education, common sense gun laws, and cost of healthcare.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Joanne Dewey, also a retired union electrician.
Joe. Appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I am not government, but I am a former public school secretary in elementary school. So being a stay-at-home mom now, one of my biggest concerns is safety in schools. So gun control. I mean, just being a secretary and knowing that you were first in line for any issues and being told by administration that they don't have money to put more safety in place, that's a big concern.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
My name is Nick Marinello. I'm an English teacher at Chippewa Valley High School. And something that's very recently of mine is, echoing lots of things on the table, but, cost of healthcare, common sense, gun regulations, the wealth gap, kind of all of those inequities that we're seeing in the country and how do we close those gaps.
Great, thank you. To the English teachers among us, I'll never forget the look of disappointment on my dad's face when I told him I was an English major. College. He's like, you're taking out student loans, we're taking out loans. This may be something you all are thinking about right now. We're all sacrificing so that you can read books. Tell us what's going to come with that. So it all worked out in the end. Very grateful for the English teachers in my life who gave me a great start. And grateful to each of you for spending some time and making me a better candidate for it. Joe mentioned corporate money in politics. We don't take any political action committee contributions, no corporate help, no special interests contributing to this campaign. It's all people. And it's all people all across this country. Conversations like these that help to shape the platform on which we're running, on every single one of these issues that we just described. And I thought I'd open the conversation by following your lead on some of the things that you brought up, and then want you to come into the conversation and add to that, and make this a better campaign for it. Many of you mentioned healthcare. We talked about mental health care specifically. In my home state of Texas, and unfortunately there are other states like it, the largest provider of mental health care services today is the county jail system. And the largest inpatient mental health care facility is the Harris County Jail in Houston, Texas, in a state of 28 million people. And what that functionally means is that very often someone with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or clinical depression is literally trying to get arrested on purpose to go to the one place that they are guaranteed care. What I find from listening to people is that we all want to get to universal, guaranteed, high-quality health care. So that includes mental health care, primary health care. We mentioned prescription drugs and ensuring that they're affordable for everyone. The program that we've proposed is called Medicare for America. And what it does is it ensures that everyone who does not have health care today is automatically enrolled in Medicare. Those who are insufficiently covered, meaning they can't really afford their co-pays, they're not going to fill that prescription because they just can't afford it, or go to the doctors because of the size of the deductible, they can elect to move into Medicare. But those who have employer-sponsored insurance, including members of unions who fought for a health care plan that works for them and their families, they're able to keep it. So we get to universal guaranteed care, but we also preserve choice in our plan. We really make sure that mental health care is a big part of it, and we make sure that that begins at the very youngest ages, backing up the work that you're doing in the schools that you've worked in. Several of you mentioned the gun laws and gun safety in our country right now. We know that we'll lose close to 40,000 of our fellow Americans due to gun violence. We know that we're not inherently evil or violent or bad. We know there's a human solution to this human-caused problem. Universal background checks, making sure that if you are going to own a weapon in this country, that you go through a background check so we protect those in our communities. No longer selling weapons of war that were designed to kill people effectively and efficiently, reserving those for the battlefield, and then having red flag laws so that if someone poses a danger to themselves or someone else, they're stopped before it's too late. Thinking about you and your family and your son right now, I want to make sure that in our administration, the first 2 years of college are absolutely free, and a 4-year program is debt-free, and not just for tuition, but room and board and books, the full cost to improve yourself so that you can improve your community. And then learning from your examples, I want to make sure that if you have outstanding student loan debt and you're willing to work in public service, in a public school, that we completely forgive your student loan debt so you can focus on that education. We were just in Centerline, and I was talking to a small business owner. His wife teaches kindergarten. She loves the job, incredibly fulfilling, but they have a daughter who just graduated from college, went through the teacher training program, and decided not to become a teacher because it is so expensive to pay back that student loan debt, try to make ends meet on a teacher's salary, and she's going to instead manage a restaurant where she can make more money, even though her calling is in public service. So in our administration, we will reward that and help people to make that choice to work in a public school or serve veterans at the VA, where we are really understaffed today in this country. Mentioned anxiety about people being able to enter into or stay in the middle class, and we have the presence of so many union members here today. We know that unions built the middle class in the United States of America. If unions are strengthened, we will grow the middle class even more than we already have. We saw a report that in Michigan, this state will create more than 500,000 high-skilled trades jobs over the next 7 years. I want to make sure that people in the state are trained for those jobs, and the best way to do that is through a union. We were in Ferndale not too long ago at the Carpenters Training Program, and there for 4 years debt-free, you can learn the skill, the trade necessary to command a living wage for the rest of your life. And I asked the person who was running the program there, I said, well, what if your job is automated out of existence, or you leave the workforce for a while to raise a family and you come back in? And he told me there is guaranteed training for the rest of your life. That union is going to guarantee that you are successful. So I really want to improve upon some of the efforts you're making here to change Michigan and other states from so-called right to work so that they are right to organize. When we have stronger unions, we're going to be able to meet the challenges of this century and the next, and make sure that we grow that middle class. So these are all issues that you all brought up. I wanted to make sure that I address them very quickly, and then I now want to bring you into the conversation. Tell me some of the solutions that you'd like to see as part of the program, part of the administration that we want to run for this country. And as you raise a hand, I'll call on Joe.
How do we overturn citizens united? How do we get some of that obscene corporate money out of our political system?
Yeah, if things were not already bad enough in this country in terms of being able to buy access and influence, in 2010 the Supreme Court says corporations are people, money is speech, therefore corporations can spend unlimited amounts of money. And you get the otherwise inexplicable. Somebody mentioned prescription drug prices. How is it that we don't allow Medicare to use its purchasing power as leverage to bring down the cost of prescription medication? You and I as taxpayers have already paid in the research and design, the clinical trials, and then we buy it for Medicare, Medicaid, VA, TRICARE beneficiaries. We should get a better bargain by taking corporate money out, overturning Citizens United. We can do that. We're trying to lead by example in this campaign. We don't take PAC money, and as a member of Congress, I have not taken PAC money for the last 5 years. So I think we've got to lead by example and walk the talk. And then once in a position of public trust to do something about it, we got to make sure that we get PACs out of federal elections altogether, corporations out of our government, and really focus on people like we're doing here today. Thanks for asking, Joe.
So one issue that came up last night in the meeting, and I thought it was continually framed again and again in the wrong way, is this question of healthcare choice. I mean, I have great healthcare. My teacher, my union fought for that, but I don't have a choice in what healthcare I get. They're like, here's your healthcare, here's your insurance, I get it, you get it, until you don't get it. And so I wonder how, as a field of candidates, how do you reframe that and force it away from this framing of we're going to be taking away choice? Because we really don't. I mean, we don't have a choice. If you're an independent contractor or someone who doesn't have the benefit of employer-sponsored healthcare, yeah, I guess nominally you have some choice, but not really, because you're so driven by cost. And then even if you are able to get the healthcare, are you able to access that healthcare? I mean, I may be covered, but I might not be able to access that healthcare because of my high deductible or my high premiums or any of your issues. And so I want to see candidates start to inject that framing of we're going to be taking away choice. A lot of last night, a lot of we're going to make choice illegal, and it's not about that. There is no choice in healthcare, and so I think when people start to understand that you are locked into this system, you get affordable healthcare, you get the lowest healthcare that you can afford. It's not like going to the grocery store and buying ketchup brands. It doesn't work that way. I get what I'm given, and I have to like it, or I have to quit my job. And so I'm wondering, what are ways that we can shift the paradigm and stop using that way? It's not a question of choice. We don't have choice in healthcare. We have what we have, and we are forced to take it, or then we have nothing. So I love the idea of Medicare for America, but I really want to see Democrats stop buying into that narrative of you have choice, you have choice, and that's great. Choice is great, but we don't have choice. Right?
One of the things that you said about having coverage but not being guaranteed the care really resonates with me. We were in a town called Weatherford in North Texas in last year, and we learned about a school teacher who, like you, had insurance but didn't have $119, which was the copay for her flu medication, and literally died of the flu in the wealthiest and most powerful country on the face of the planet. Unconscionable. And for that reason, in addition to talking about universal and high quality care, I talk about guaranteed care. So no copay whatsoever for your prescription medication, for mental health care visits, for primary care visit. I want to make sure that you are well enough to be in that classroom, or to raise your kids, or to start a business, or to do whatever you were placed on this planet to do in the first place. So it's got to be guaranteed. And then I want to make sure that you do have the option, if you are in a situation where you don't have a health care plan that works for you, that you can be in Medicare. One of the most successful programs ever developed in the United States. Overhead of about 2%, delivers real value, and then invest even more in Medicare than we're investing today. For example, include long-term care in Medicare. So you can age in place, and it's not something that you have to go into poverty or bankruptcy in order to qualify for under Medicaid, which is the way that we do it here today. So love the point that you're making, and really want to make sure this is guaranteed for everything. We should all be well enough to live to our full potential. Other thoughts on
As an educator, it's very disheartening to see the inequities in school funding, depending on where you live. What do you do, or what would you do to make sure that there is more equality, spread, so that students are given a fair chance everywhere?
We will start a permanent education fund. It will have an endowment of $500 billion, and it will generate between $20 to $25 billion a year to address inequality and equity in school funding. I'll give you an example. We know that majority school districts are underfunded to the tune of about $23 billion a year. And some people have described a system of functional segregation that is worse today in some places than it was on the eve of Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. So we've got to make that investment in those schools, in deferred maintenance that we've seen for literally decades, in the jobs that are connected to it, whether they're plumbing or electrical or other important trades jobs that can keep people in work or put people to work. But we also have to address equity in terms of ensuring that we're investing in more teachers who look like the students in front of them in that classroom. So We also have announced $500 million a year to minority-serving institutions and historically black colleges and universities for teacher training academies. And then we've got to pay teachers a living wage. In Texas, nearly half teachers work a second or a third job just
In
to make
Michigan,
ends meet.
too.
Is that in Michigan? So the entrepreneur that I was just talking about, whose wife teaches kindergarten, he says out of her own pocket every year, though she's not paid enough already, spends between $2,000 to $3,000 on her students, and not just classroom decorations or school supplies for the kid who forgot them, but a hot
Lunches,
meal.
food.
That's right. The kid may be on free and reduced breakfast and lunch, but does not have a dinner waiting for her when she gets home. That teacher is going to pay for that dinner. Or the kid who shows up in the same t-shirt and jeans Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, she's purchased a new set of clothes because she understands his ability to learn is connected to his sense of self-worth and dignity, and she's going to invest in that. We'll also invest in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. The federal government is underfunding that to the tune of about $20 billion a year. My sister was a special ed student, and I know how hard her teachers worked. We need to support them and have their backs. And that frees local school districts to pay their teachers more, to invest in cutting edge innovation in their classrooms. So we'll do it both in the investments that we make and also our ability to attract new teachers and retain the teachers that we have and invest in their success going forward. Yeah, thank you.
As you know, there's unions all pay for their own apprenticeship programs, right? It's all fully funded by the unions. We don't receive any federal funding of any sort. So I know there's been an attack, if you will, on the registered apprentice programs to weaken us and take out the training and the standard of excellence we had. What are your solutions to that and securing our apprenticeships and securing people who have the middle class lifestyle, with some people not choosing college as an option?
I love this question because I think it speaks to our ability to rise to our full potential. If it's a four-year education, let's make sure that that's affordable and that you don't take on debt. But if you choose not to go to college and enter this carpenter's training program that we visited in Ferndale, I want to make sure that you have every opportunity to do that as well. And to use Centerline again as an example, the person I was just speaking with said that they started an academy program there for welders, so that you leave high school with a pathway to joining an apprenticeship that is going to provide you the skills that you'll have for the rest of your life and command a living wage for the rest of your life, and then fill one of those more than 500,000 high-skill, high-wage jobs that Michigan's going to create over the next 7 years. I want that training to happen here. As president, we'll make a significant investment in infrastructure and also meeting the challenge of a changing climate by investing in the resiliency of our communities and the next generation of technologies. And I want those jobs, by and large, to be union jobs. And I want many of those union jobs to be first-year apprentice union jobs so that there's a real pathway to bring people in. We were in a small community in Iowa at the very beginning of this campaign, Fort Madison, and they had just started a welding program in their high school. I remember meeting Mr. King, who is the teacher in the welding program, and he said, we have more students wanting to come into this program than we have spaces right now because they're able to leave high school and go into high-paying jobs that are open right now that are unfilled, and we're making that connection. So they're gonna double the size of their welding program next year. So all this is connected in my mind. Public education, connected with unions, connected with our economy, connected with investment in infrastructure and clean energy jobs going forward. I think we have to be fearless about this future, just as we were in the past, and the jobs and the economic growth will follow.
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, as you were saying, I think that's one of the problems with the schools now, is they took all the trades out. I mean, when I graduated high school, I took wood shop, I had home ec class, metal shop, and the auto field was in the shop, and they took them all out because the funding's not there. And I think that's the biggest problem right now, is no one's getting taught in the school to be sustained with the clothing, like you said, or working on auto. We used to have an auto class, you know, these bring cars in, the students would work on the people's cars. They were just regular people like you guys, and then they'll learn how to do that. Well, that's not in the case no more. There's no more of that. Just like music and stuff like that. There's no more funding for the music. So what we're gonna do, you know, I think that's gonna help out if we figure out ways to get vocational classes back into the schools.
I think you hit it right on the head. And I mentioned this investment that we're gonna make in public education, but that investment should follow your lead at the community level. You understand the employment opportunities in Macomb County far better than I ever will if I'm in the White House in Washington, D.C. So we're gonna make sure that the resources are there. You provide the leadership and the guidance for those resources so that they connect those young students with the jobs that we're creating, or the jobs that we want to create in this community. And those can be welding, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, whatever it is, but I want to follow the lead here. In El Paso, Texas, my hometown, we really led on dual language education. We live in this binational community. Many of us speak English and Spanish. We're right on the U.S.-Mexico border. So my kids in public school are learning math and English today. Tomorrow they're learning math in Spanish. That's a local decision that's guiding the competitiveness of those kids. I want you to be able to make that decision here in this community. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it. Other questions, comments, ideas?
I love your idea of the 2 years at least of college being funded, like in essence in year 13 and 14.
There you go.
But I can hear the Republican talking point right now. How are you going to make tax deductible? Would that be an option perhaps?
I think we can also ask the very wealthiest in this country and corporations. Joe was talking about the influence that corporations have been able to purchase. They purchased a $2 trillion tax cut. You have corporations like GM paying zero in taxes, Amazon paying zero in taxes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the teachers here lost our tax deductions, and that would help us too.
That's right.
We lost it.
That $2,000 we were just talking about, pulling out of your own pocket, used to be able to take the deduction, now can no longer do it. So what if we asked corporations to pay their fair share? They were able to write a 35% tax rate down to 21%. If we just took it back up to 28%, all the way to 35%, you would generate hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 10 years. If we taxed capital investment at the same rate that we taxed wage income or ordinary income, hundreds of billions of dollars. And then we can make the investment not only in higher education, but we could also extend learning to pre-K universally for every child. We know that when we do that, there's a better chance they're going to graduate from high school, their earning potential is higher. In other words, the investment pays for itself because you have greater economic growth than you would otherwise. So this is an investment we've got to make. We can't afford not to make it, right? So we definitely have the resources to do that in this country. Thanks, Casey.
One of my areas of concern is making sure that students, adolescents, as they grow, are healthy and strong enough to take advantage of post-high school opportunities. So that's why I'm passionate about service provisions that support their healthy growth and development. And I'm not seeing I'm not seeing much of an emphasis at all on the national level with regard to access to healthcare services for adolescents. I mean, often, well, frequently, it happens that parents may or may not know there's something going on with their kid. And for some children, unfortunately, it's dangerous for them in their household situation. And being able to access resources to help them be successful in school so that they can grow and become the people we want them to be and reach their potential, as you say, is very important. And so I would like to see an emphasis on, at the very least, trauma-informed schools and trauma-informed practices in schools to help children, and it will help all children achieve their potential. Because unfortunately, not everyone grows up in a situation that is picture perfect. In fact, I can fairly say that no one grows up in a situation that is picture perfect. And so finding ways to help all children wherever they are and help them grow and develop the resilience and the coping skills to be able to meet whatever challenge they face is crucial to them being able to take advantage of the post-high school opportunities that you're presenting.
Got to be well enough, right, to be able to pursue
Yes.
your potential in life.
Absolutely.
We were in Kashmir Gardens, a neighborhood in Houston, Texas, a year after Hurricane Harvey hit. And a year later, the community had not fully recovered. Homes were still, in many cases, uninhabitable. 4 of the 5 libraries were still closed down. And we were passing the elementary school, Kashmir Elementary, and the neighborhood president who was giving us a tour, I said to him, so everything you told me, this school has got to be struggling. And he said, no, this is the bright spot in the neighborhood, and I'll tell you why. He told me the story of a young boy who had experienced a lot of trauma, including losing the home that he'd been living in, and some part of his trauma expressed itself in a need to actually sleep in a car just outside of where that home was. He had to be physically close to where he had lived. It was his grandmother's car. But this neighborhood president told me that when he walks into Kashmir Elementary, he's walking into the right place. He's fully welcomed by those teachers, and they support his full emotional and social well-being. So a complete community school, not just instructional learning, not just free and reduced breakfast and lunch, but the mental health care, the social worker, the person who completes that kid so that he's ready to learn and will do better over the course of his academic career, and as you suggest, post-high school, he's going to be a much better person for it. So let's make that investment in those public school educators and in those schools. And again, as we were talking about with higher ed, that's an investment that will be returned many times over versus having to take care of people through the criminal justice system or folks who aren't unable to complete high school and aren't able to shoulder their fair share of the burden and contribute to their full potential. So I love this, and you used a phrase I had not heard before, trauma-informed schools. So I really appreciate that, and that's why we have meetings like this, so that I can learn and become better. I'm I can tell that. I can tell. Thank you. Other comments, questions, Bob? Yes.
The only